etc. So fighting a lot of rubbish. I could just sit here and do nothing as a committee member, couldn't I? And then that would be easy with life.
That is what I need to do.
That wouldn't be you.
Well, no, that's so then these things come at a
like 10 o'clock.
Good morning, members, and welcome to this morning's meeting of the Planning and Transportation Committee. As you are aware, the public element of today's meeting is being live streamed, and those participating in the meeting have given consent to their inclusion. The recording will be available on the City Corporation's YouTube channel following the meeting, and it shall be retained for up to 1 civic year. Whilst we endeavour to live stream all our public meetings, technical difficulties may sometimes prevent live broadcast. In these instances, we aim to upload a recording after the end of the meeting. All personal data will be processed in accordance with the Data Protection Act 2018, and for any further information on that, please feel free to contact us. Please be aware that microphones will be on at a low level at all times, and background sounds could be picked up. Thank you.
Morning, members. I'm afraid you're stuck with me today as the chairman's unavailable, but I have got the presence of the city police in the back there, so I said any misbehaviour, they're on call. Thank you, members. I thought we'd start with some good news, actually. We won some awards recently. The city planning teams won the award for Team of the Year at the New London Architecture Awards recently, and I thought it'd be worth reading what the judges said, actually. The Team of the Year is celebrated for their outstanding achievements in transforming an area from a working weekday environment into a vibrant 7-day destination. Their ongoing efforts to enhance cultural attractions and public realm improvements in response to the effects of the pandemic are highly recognised. And we've also won an award for Platinum Rating for the pace and quality of planning decisions in the city in Planning Resources' annual Best Council Decision Makers survey. Only one of 7 English planning authorities to be awarded a platinum rating amongst 300 peer groups. So I think those are both very commendable, and we ought to congratulate the team in the usual manner. Thank you. Now, members, we've had a lot of questions on the various agenda items today. So please, can I ask if you can keep your questions short and succinct, and we will try and get through them all. Several of you have sent several emails with several questions, some of them repeated, so if I don't remember the exact order they were received in, forgive me. If I have forgotten, just put your hand up and we will make sure we get to everyone in due course. And we'll start with agenda item 1, Town Clerk.
Thank you. Apologies for absence have been received from Deputy Tom Slay, Deputy Marianne Fredericks, Anthony Manchester, Alderwoman Jeanette Newman, Naresh Sompar and David Williams.
Thank you. Yes.
Tana Adkin is in court today. I believe she sent an email.
Sure. Anthony.
And I've been able to reschedule my appointment so I can...
You're here?
Yes.
Great. Henry.
I think Jaspreet Hodgson sent apologies.
We'll note that. Thank you. Members, item 2, any declarations?
Yeah, thanks.
Seeing none. Item 3 is the minutes of the last meeting. Before we look at those in detail, there's a piece that I want to clarify. On page 9 of the report pack, under the city plan item, P&T resolved to approve a 6-week consultation on the modifications to the city plan. That then went to Policy and Resources on the 13th of November, where it was also agreed, and it's scheduled to go to court on the 12th of December. On a technical point of governance, reports need to be recommended to court by the relevant committee, which in this case is Planning and Transport for the city plan. that wasn't very clear in the original report. So for transparency and an audit trail, we need to confirm that members are content and aware that the modifications on the city plan will be referred to court by this committee and not P&R. On that basis, are members happy to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
No, I've got a question.
Questions on the minutes? Yes, Alison.
Well, the question really was about the minutes of the 8th of July, because I think last time we blithely approved them, even though I actually said I hadn't seen them, and there was some confusion because what you all approved was actually the 8th of May, but headed 8th of July. So the point is that there isn't wasn't at the time a written set of minutes, although we have the recording. It's mentioned as a note in the minutes, and I just wondered how soon before we would actually have those written minutes from the 8th of July, please.
Town clerk.
Thank you. I apologise for that the 8th of July minutes are not yet available. I am working on them and I will expect to present them to the meeting in January.
Okay, thank you. Someone else had their hand up. Yes, Philip.
There are quite a few typos in the minutes that might be useful to go through. For example, Walbrook Ward on page 11 rather than Walbrook Wharf.
If you've identified those, would you mind corresponding with the town clerk and we can make sure typos are corrected? Thank you for that. Anyone else? Those minutes are then to approve, members. Agreed? Thank you very much. Item 4 is a review of the carbon options guidance, planning advice note, report of the Executive Director. Who's going to present this? Charlotte.
Thank you, Deputy Chair, and good morning, everyone. So the City of London Corporation is recognised as the first local authority to drive the retrofit first approach, and this was introduced by the Carbon Options Guidance. So adopted in March 2023, the Carbon Options Guidance is an industry-leading policy guidance that has established a framework for estimating and comparing carbon emissions of different redevelopment options at pre-application stage. So the purpose and process of carbon optioneering is now well understood by applicants and key stakeholders. It has been put into practice over the last few years. But sustainability is a really fast-moving industry, and feedback from users of the Carbon Options Guidance and various related updates to tools, policies, has triggered a review and an update of this planning advice note with a few minor amendments. So Hilson Moran, who is the original author of the Carbon Options Guidance, has been re-engaged to update the planning advice note to firstly clarify which planning applications should undertake optioneering. It's introduced an exemption for a retrofit scheme that can clearly demonstrate it would ensure the lowest level of intervention. It includes a new chapter on the third-party review process to ensure that rigour and scrutiny is applied to this quality assurance process. The update has clarified the relationship between carbon optioneering and other key GLA policy requirements, such as whole life cycle carbon assessments and pre-redevelopment audits. It's clarified certain elements of the carbon optioneering methodology and calculations, and finally, it ensures that this policy document and the policy context is up to date. The carbon options tool has also been updated. This is the Excel reporting template to reflect changes in the policy and provide more clearly defined outputs. The CPA, City Property Association, was consulted on the draft update as representatives of applicants in the city. No key issues were raised, however, a few minor suggestions to this version were introduced just to improve clarity. And so, in conclusion, the updated Carbon Options Guidance ensures that this policy guidance remains relevant, industry-leading, and continues to deliver against our climate action strategy to deliver a net zero and resilient square mile by 2040. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions that were sent in advance. I've got John Edwards first.
Thank you, Chair. Based on my questions about the other policy options on page 14, office lighting strategy is missing. And I think, considering that I understand 26% of the energy consumption in a square mile is on lights, that should be there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, and we have agreed that we'll introduce reference to our lighting supplementary planning document, which is also a key policy document, under other policy opportunities in Chapter 5. Thank you.
And Jackie.
Thank you, Chair. I asked a question about the retrofit and co-living. So my question was, with 45 Beach Street underway, is there support for more high-quality schemes that take retrofit-led approach, using appropriate ageing office stock to residential conversions? And is there support for more of that? But also, in particular, not just in terms of the retrofit and the whole life carbon optioneering, it's also about affordability, attracting professional workers, as well as our key workers who support the infrastructure of the running of our city. And also for residents, a chance to stay in their community in more appropriate housing, ageing better. Thank you.
Thanks very much for the question. So, yeah, in line with the city's long-standing policy approach, I think it's just worthwhile saying a little bit about the city plan policy here, which sets the overarching framework and is very much the emerging new policy for the square mile looking forward. But that is in line, as I say, with our long-standing policy approach, focusing new residential development, which includes co-living as a form of residential, into our established and existing residential areas. And the city plan recognises that co-living is likely to have a role to play in meeting the city's housing needs alongside other residential typologies, such as build-to-rent, affordable housing, and for-sale market homes. We obviously have also challenging targets to meet in terms of delivering office space for the square mile, and therefore the plan recognises that housing, whether co-living or other typologies, mustn't prejudice that primary business function. It carefully seeks to manage proposals for change of use away from office to protect our office stock, but it does recognise through the retrofit fast track opportunities to change use to hotels, to education and to cultural use. And within and around our residential areas, it also allows in some instances change of use to residential, which could include co-living, provided that's justified by appropriate marketing evidence and that these are not strategically important office sites that need to contribute to our office requirement. So in some instances, it may well be appropriate. In other instances, may well not be appropriate, and it will be a matter of judgment in those different cases. So not an immediate yes or no answer for you, but certainly it's an option to be explored in some instances.
Thank you. Any other questions? That then is to agree, members. Thank you. Right, moving on to items 5, 6, 7 and 8. So we've had a lot of questions on 5, 6 and 7. What I'm proposing is that we actually take, because they're all related to climate and the environment and Vision Zero, I suggest we actually take all of the questions related to all three items together, because they all interrelate, and rather than repeating the question from one agenda item to another, we will take them in series, if that's all right with everyone. So first of all, I have Alderman Gowman, please, asking about the business plan.
And you just want me to ask them one at a time, though?
Well, I think bring them together, if you don't mind. Is that all right?
All right.
Or you can ask in series, and then they can respond.
The first one is about the business plan update, and it's page 18 of the information pack. And I wanted to ask why, under one of the KPIs, the number of engagement sessions with the Square Mile programme is aimed to be 10 by the end of this current financial year, but in fact, so far, only 3 have been delivered. In that context, can I say one of them, I assume, was the City Sustainability Summit last week, which was exceptionally well delivered about district heating, energy, etc. So the quality is there, but we are lacking 7 sessions, and I wondered what the plans are, because the financial year is only a few months away, and it would be useful to have those dates publicly known, or that we're not going to meet that target. My 2 other points were about road safety. Do you really want me to go on to those now?
Please.
Okay. So in the risk register, which is the next item, one of the highest risks that's shown is around road safety. And there are a range of engineering interventions that are all referred to, which are all great. But in fact, I am concerned about the coordination between the police and the corporation and other parties in respect of, in a sense, the behaviours of individuals. So it's not about the engineering on the roads, making junctions safe, raising the road at junctions to make sure that cars, etc., slow down at that point. But it's about pedestrian behaviour, particularly, and other behaviour, because I know that pedestrian behaviour, when I last looked at the figures, was the highest single cause of collisions within the city, and therefore I'm concerned that there's nothing referred to in the report around that behavioural aspect and what are we doing about it. Just having events with cyclists being picked up, which are great, with, obviously other events that are happening, but there's nothing around, to my mind, pedestrian behaviour, and we know that's the largest way in which people are coming in and out of the city. My third point is actually on the report at item 7, and it's again in terms of road safety, and it was a concern that I had. It's around page 66, para 47, which refers to the fact that amongst all the other transport strategy items, we're looking at safer streets. And it talks about speeding, and that's picked up by the city police, etc. Now, I read the Home Office papers in 2023, which is the latest year published, which showed that the city police force were the worst force for actually prosecuting speeding offences. Some 50% of speeding offences picked up on cameras were not being prosecuted by the city police. Next worst force was the Met, and then others were some way down on that. So it does mean that although these notices of intended prosecution are being quoted here, only 50% of them are ever followed up with those people who have speeded. And we do know that speed kills. I do have a further aspect to that as to really what the city police's intentions are around speed cameras and picking up speeding offences. Having spoken to officers before this meeting, it suggested I maybe ask that question in confidential, since it does refer to operational matters of the city police. But my concern is that we're putting our hope is, in our confidence in the city police picking up speeding cars and vehicles, but in fact, those aren't actually being brought to fruition. So really, are they as effective as they should be? Thank you.
Thank you. Rob, you're going to answer the first piece, please.
If I can get a microphone, I will. Thank you very much. Thank you for the question. Yes, we did have a fantastic event, the Sustainable City Summit. Around 100 stakeholders across the industry were there, held just last week. And we expect that to really help us to expand and ramp up what we're doing in terms of engagement. And it has taken a fair bit of bandwidth to organise that event and to get our work there. We have also engaged directly with the CPA, particularly their Planning and Sustainability board, and we're going to be doing further work with individual members of that board as well to understand how we can best take our partnership work forward. I think just to manage expectations, we may be shy of the target of meeting, having 10 events by the end of the financial year, but certainly there is a lot of work going on, and I expect that to ramp up in the coming months. The City Sustainable Summit was really the sort of aimed at kick-starting that. We'll have also a number of comms coming out off the back of that. We've got a video that's going to go out too. So I really expect that will really help us to drive more engagement on all of this. And work towards something like the 10 engagement sessions that we've committed to.
Thank you. On the other two, Ian, do you want to take those? I'm just mindful as well, though, that we are planning and transport, not police committee. So, obviously a lot of the responsibility on prosecutions and so on sits with a different committee, and I don't want to sort of step on their toes. So let's answer these in the context of highways and operations. And I know the police are in the room and able to answer some of the questions related to that. But let's make sure we're not sort of treading into police matters.
Thank you, Chair. That's a very valid point for members to note. I appreciate we made aware of a number of member questions around road safety that straddled, I think, 3 of the information reports that we have in front of you today, and we're very happy to pick those up in one discussion, if I can frame it that way. And they're mainly anchored around item 7 from Vision Zero, but I appreciate they're also noted in relation to the risk register in the report, and also the report from the Chamberlain around on-street parking funding, which also contributes to some of these things. So if Chair's happy, we prepared a few words to introduce item 7 as if it was actually a normal 4 decision paper, which Bruce will give. And then I'll turn to my police colleagues to introduce themselves and answer a few questions in relation to the ordinance point. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Morning, members. So as Ian said, we thought it'd be useful just to give a brief introduction, primarily on item 7, but conscious that there have been questions that relate to it. Obviously, there's a thread that runs through items 6, 7 and 9, I think it is, for the on-street parking reserve funding. Item 7 is a report that summarises the latest casualty data and the actions that we're taking to reduce road danger and deliver our aspiration that no one is killed and seriously injured while travelling on the city streets, which is known as Vision Zero. As members will have seen in the report, there's been a longer-term reduction in the number of people injured in traffic collisions, from an average of 387 in 2010 to 14 to an average of 203 in 2022 to 24. Generally, when we're looking at this kind of data, we look at those 3-year averages because, again, as members will have seen, if they looked at, say, the data of just 2022, 2023 and 2024, there's quite a lot of fluctuation between years. But we've included that more granular data as well so that members got all the information in front of them. And in the last 3 years, again, as I said, the number of people injured has fluctuated quite a bit. And those variations between 2022, 23 and 24 mean that it's not yet possible to establish a post-pandemic trend. And again, you'll see in the report that there are quite big differences between pre-pandemic and post-pandemic numbers. And then, as members will have noted under item 6, we do have a departmental risk that relates to road safety. And while the number of people killed in traffic collisions in the city remains thankfully low, this risk remains a red risk, and that reflects the likelihood that a fatal collision in the future is possible, and that one person was regrettably killed last year. We have a specific Safer Streets programme that is targeting locations where clusters of collisions have occurred, and this includes exploring the potential for changes to the junction with Aldersgate Street, Long Lane and Beach Street. It's also exploring potential changes at Holborn Circus, Newgate Street and Aldgate High Street. And further feasibility work on these locations and the potential changes that could be made to them will start early next year. And this will include engagement with residents and businesses, including residents of the Barbican and Golden Lane for the Aldersgate Street junction. And this will build on recent engagement and consultation on the Healthy Neighbourhoods Plan for that area and Healthy Streets plans more generally. And whilst that's a specific programme, it's important to note that many of our other projects and programmes are also delivering safer streets, and improvements to places such as St Paul's Gyratory, Fleet Street and Leadenhall Street also have key Safer Streets elements as part of them. And on a smaller scale, our Healthy Streets Minor Schemes programme is delivering improvements at side street junctions across the city as well. Then the potential for future projects to deliver against Vision Zero is a key consideration for prioritising and considering bids for capital funding, particularly those from the on-street parking reserve. And then finally, as has been mentioned, partnership working with the City of London Police is absolutely key to this. I'm really pleased that we have colleagues with us here today for that as well. And that's particularly with a focus on our side in terms of the work that we do with ongoing promotion of safer behaviours by people cycling, in particular at the moment, alongside the police cycle squad and the wider enforcement engagement that they do around risky and illegal riding and driving. Now, our behaviour change activity does focus on people riding and people driving, and that reflects both the principles of road danger reduction and also the Highway Code's hierarchy of users, which recognises that those in charge of vehicles bear the greatest responsibility to take care and reduce the danger they pose to others. So very happy to take questions and to the discussion.
Great. So do you want to address the points raised by Alderman Gowman in particular?
Yeah, good morning. So Lorenzo, Superintendent for City Police. So just specifically on the policing-related questions, I would say that the city do a huge amount of work around road safety. Of course, that's broader than just speed, and I think, as Bruce has just alluded to, and our commitment to our permanent cycle team is testament to that. We also do have a road policing team who regularly conduct speed enforcement campaigns. They're equipped with the right equipment to do so. And obviously we work with our partners in the city to achieve that. What I'll do post this meeting is ensure that we've got the right level of community engagement and engagement with members to make sure that we're prioritising that in the right way. And I think specifically, Alderman, on your points relating to the camera enforcement and the enforcement percentage, in terms of tactics, it would be good to take that into the non-public session, if that's okay, and we can talk a little bit more about some of the specific tactics that we do and don't have around speed enforcement.
Okay. Yes.
I'm happy about that with regard to the police matter, but regarding pedestrians, I didn't quite get from your response, Bruce. You were talking about the Highway Code priority of users being those who are sort of doing the most damage, i.e. Cycles and cars, etc. But there are pedestrians as well, and I wondered what engagement you were proposing other than just a general healthy streets conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, at the moment, we're not proposing any engagement campaigns that are specifically targeted at people walking and wheeling. I mean, there's a few reasons for that. I think one, we obviously have limited resources, and those are prioritised at the moment, particularly towards addressing unsafe, risky, illegal behaviour by people cycling for it. I think the other thing is there's no, I think it's really hard to run an effective campaign that's going to get a real reach into people walking as well. I think targeting those behaviour change campaigns is quite a difficult thing to do, to get to the sheer number of people we have walking, the variety of people we have walking, and no kind of obvious channel, I guess, to feed that through. I guess the other side for it as well is, again, as I said, a lot of the work that we're doing with the police, or that the police are doing, is focused on illegal behaviour. And again, a lot of the behaviour that may be considered risky by people walking is not technically illegal for that as well. So we're trying to address those things that we think cause the biggest risk to the most vulnerable people on our streets. And in particular, as I said, that's focused on people riding bikes, people driving as well.
Thank you. Deborah, was your point related to this question? Yeah, please.
I think first of all, Chair, thank you for unstarring the item and letting us have a debate on this issue, because I think there are threads across the papers. And I know colleagues Jackie Webster and Alderman King also hear a lot from communities, from the Neighbourhood Forum and from the public about concerns about road safety. And I think because it's such a high priority on the risk register, it helps to be able to join together some of the thinking across the police activities and also planning activities. And in the risk paper, it flags that there might be funding issues for things like implementing the healthy street schemes. So that's where there might be a link potentially to the parking funding paper, whether if this is such a high priority, and I think we all agree that it is, if there are funding issues, perhaps they need to be prioritised and we could find out what they are. Secondly, a lot of the concerns are around that we hear in our wards are around areas like Beach Street, where you've got increased amount of electric bikes, and the whole area where you've got poor behaviour from bike users abandoning bikes to criminal behaviour when bike users are actually going through red lights. And it's again trying to think about whether the planning aspects and looking at colleagues too on streets and walkways can be working together with the police to identify planning solutions as well as the enforcement solutions that I'm sure the superintendent and sergeant can talk about. And my final point, you'll be glad to know, is really about the scheduling development because that does impact on road safety. And I think we did agree as a committee about 6 months ago that we would look at that kind of Beach Street, Golden Lane, Long Lane, Silk Street, Gresham Street. There's a lot of planned development work or desired development work in this area which will increase traffic and construction traffic. And just we were going to be reviewing it to look at scheduling. So do we have any time scale for that? Thank you, Chair.
Of course. Who wants to go first? Bruce?
Yeah, I can go first on the funding and the dockless bikes points, and I think Gwyn's going to come in on the final question. So funding, as I mentioned in the introduction, Vision Zero is one of the things that we consider when we're looking at prioritising projects that will come forward for bids. The main way that we fund our projects is through on-street parking reserve and SIL funding. And we've just been through a process to prioritise future bids for that, and the extent to which projects deliver the transport strategy, Vision Zero and accessibility improvements are the key considerations there for it. Just to say on the funding risk that's in the risk management report, that's flagging a potential future risk. There isn't a funding issue as of now, but there could be in the future. So that's why that is a risk in the risk management schedule, and why we have mitigations, particularly focused around that prioritisation exercise to make sure that we are investing the money that we do have in the projects that will deliver the biggest benefits, including Vision Zero benefits for it. On cycling, well, we talked a bit already about cycle behaviour by people cycling. And obviously we're supporting a TfL campaign at the moment around some of the newer rules in the highway code. Several parts of that are aimed specifically at people cycling, particularly around red lights and stopping at zebra crossings, including on bus stop bypasses. More generally, that's where a lot of the work we're doing with the police is focused, as you'll know, for that. And then we're also engaging with the dockless bike operators themselves, who push their own messaging out through their apps and their own campaigns to promote safe behaviour by people cycling, in particular to raise awareness of things like red light jumping as well. So there's quite a joined up approach on that side of it. The issue of abandoned bikes isn't primarily picked up through Vision Zero, but is picked up through our wider work on dockless bikes. And in particular, our requirement that we've had for a long time now for bikes to be left in mandatory parking areas for it, and the ongoing work that we're doing with operators to try and improve compliance with that, which includes us delivering more parking bays, but also them and making sure that they're properly fining and warning people who leave bikes outside those bays, and responding promptly to remove bikes when they're reported as well.
Gwyn?
I'll address the question about how we manage construction activity, both in terms of residential amenity and servicing and so on. This is a matter that has been raised by members in the past. I think Philip Kelvin raised it some months ago. It is something we're on to. We have agreed a priority list of member training programs. So we've done tall buildings and conservation, sustainability and the city plan. We've also done planning training for the entire membership of the city, irrespective if you're a member of P&T. This is the next one on our list. We envisage to be doing this on the 10th of February. And I think what we are focusing in on how city operations, environmental health and planning work together to coordinate what are quite challenging issues to do with a number of sites coming on into construction. We're not in the game to stop construction, but we're trying to mitigate excessive impacts both on amenity and on the highway and so on. So we hope to be pulling together a training session on the 10th of February for all P&T members. We don't hedge that as a review. We've not pledged to review the system, but we're constantly reviewing how we can improve. But really it's there for members to understand how we do this in a very joined up and integrated way.
Thank you. Is it related to this point? Okay, yeah.
Just a quick point, please, and that is I'm delighted that you're hoping to do work to the Aldersgate, Long Lane, Beach Street Junction early in the year, but both 128 Long Lane, which is going to be transformed into a hotel, and 45 Beach Street, the co-living, are already at the soft strip-out phase, or the finished soft strip-out. So can you at least put an embargo on any work going on whilst you're doing the junction? Otherwise, the ancillary streets are going to be so clogged.
Yeah, just to be clear on Aldersgate Street, the work that needs to be done there is feasibility work to work out what changes might be possible. It's actually quite a complicated junction to make changes to, and the initial feasibility work that we did around the priority safer streets locations has highlighted that both there and Holborn Circus are areas that need a lot more work and coordination with Transport for London on that. So there's no plans to immediately do any works around that for it. More generally, which we got into in the detail at that future session, is we're always looking to coordinate any works that we do around construction works, either to maximise the benefits of delivering things alongside them, or to make sure that we're not causing too much disruption on the network. So that wider coordination would happen if it needed to in this instance.
Thank you so much.
I just need to address this idea of an embargo. We certainly don't go in and stop schemes being implemented. We try to mitigate the impacts of those schemes. The lifeblood of the city is development, and we can't be seen as an obstruction to development coming forward, but we will try to mitigate the challenges that that development pipeline offers.
Thank
you. John Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two questions, unrelated. Go ahead, both of them.
Yes, please.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so on agenda item 5, talking about the priority work streams, I must have missed when this came up first, because the definitions in some of those streams just seem a bit vague. On item B, you've got leisure, and item E, you've got healthy. So I would just like to have the officers just define what those terms actually mean. I mean, there's other terms in there which are talking about available office space in terms of metres squared, which is quite clear what that means. But for example, health, does that mean sort of personal health in terms of exercise and sport, or does that mean health in terms of not having contaminants? I mean, in terms of contaminants in the air, CO2 and PM 2.5? I mean, I wasn't sure what that meant, actually. And then if I look at the report following the list of priority work streams, our progress, there was nothing really in the report of progress that gave a further clue as to what actually those particular words meant. And another one is leisure as well. I mean, what does that actually mean? Is that leisure in terms of having a drink in the bar, or is that leisure in terms of going to the theatre, or is that leisure in terms of doing outdoor exercise? I mean, it just wasn't clear at all what those priority streams really meant. And those particular two, the rest are fine. So that's one question. The second question, completely unrelated, following on from what everyone else has been talking about. Where are we? Yeah, item 6, risk management. The highest risk is road safety. So Alison just mentioned the word engineering solutions, which is one aspect of mitigation that the officers are doing to mitigate that risk. And the two particular examples of engineering solutions mentioned were both road closures, all change of bank and St Paul's Dietary. So what I suspect is meant by these, but it wasn't articulated, is that you are saying that these road closures are engineering solutions to risk, because by doing them, you're moving traffic, diverting it to another place which is safer. For instance, diverting traffic from a narrow lane where you've got commingled cycles, bikes and people to a street which is wider footways, segregated cycle paths, and so therefore the three streams of people are separate. So I think that's what you mean, but it's not actually written black and white. That's what is meant by mitigating highest risk by closing a road. So can you just to confirm that's what you mean? Thank you, Chair.
Who wants to take the first one? Defining leisure.
I will answer the second one. Well,
You'll answer the second one first.
Whilst perhaps
your
confer on the business plan one. So I think the first thing is we don't need to close streets to make them safer, and not all of our safer streets projects will involve restricting traffic. In fact, many of them will not. For it, Aldersgate Street, Holborn Circus being examples of that, and St Paul's Gyratory as well is, whilst it does close one part of the gyratory, it doesn't actually change the way that area works, and there's traffic more generally moving through the area for it. I think on the point of the approach that we might take in different places, probably the more important thing to bear in mind there is the street hierarchy, which is set out in the transport strategy. And really what that looks to do is make sure that we have that there are streets that are more appropriate because of the way that the size of them, the space that's available, etc., that means they're the more appropriate streets to have through traffic on, which are mostly TfL streets, or traffic that's moving around the city on. For it, and others which we call local access streets are more about people accessing the local areas. So it's more a case of kind of developing a solution that is appropriate to the context of the street, how it fits in with that wider strategic street hierarchy, and then also addressing particular issues at particular places. So Bank Junction, for example, was a very complicated junction, so part of the decision to take traffic out of there as part of the safety bit was to remove the turning movements and remove a lot of the complexity out of that junction. For it, in other places, it could be pavement widening, changes to the layout of junctions, traffic signals, those kinds of things for it. So short answer is I think it depends a lot on the context for it as to where we're looking at, what the issues are, and the solutions that we'll then develop for it.
Can I just... thank you, Chair. So, Bruce, just to clarify, and I'll just paraphrase what you said. So basically, if a local street becomes used as a through street, that's a point where you consider an intervention.
Yes, generally, we want streets to operate as they are indicated in the street hierarchy, which is we have three classifications of streets. One which we call London access streets, which is through traffic, going from one part of London to another part of London that happens to be coming through the city. All of those are TfL streets. Then we have what we call city access streets, which are streets that are primarily there to help traffic move around the city, to get from one part of the city to another, or into immediate neighbouring parts of boroughs. Then everything else is a local access street, which should primarily be used just for local access to those properties, or local access within the area.
Thank you very much, Chair. What I wanted to get some clarity on is, and it's great to see, the number of, I think I'm on page 55, the average number of people injured significantly decreasing, and we track that data. But do we think that alongside our safer street strategy, we need to think about some of the other elements that we have to focus on as a committee, namely around kind of the environment and growth, and therefore maybe the efficiency of journeys through the city should be measured? Because as we know, the Bank Junction caused a significant inefficiency that then we had to go back on or amend, for example, and the current plans, as an example of Old Jewry potentially being closed off, would create a significant inefficiency for people going from one part around the Walbrook area to north of the city. They would have to go all the way to Bishopsgate, and they could be idling in traffic all the way through, creating an environmental impact and, say, a net 50% inefficient journey from that. So how do we manage the safer street strategy with our other considerations of not trying to make it incredibly inefficient for people to make their way around the city, to the fact that people don't want to come to the city anymore because it is so difficult to get around if they aren't able to walk or cycle or the other elements of transport that we have? because that part seems to be missing for me, and that's what I'm hearing on the streets of the city, and where frustration is coming up with some elements of proposals going forward at the moment.
Can I ask you to answer that generically? Because I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of deciding old jewellery here when it's coming to streets very, very soon. So can you answer that more generically around the efficiency of movement by vehicles being relevant to the way that we classify and determine on plans, please?
Certainly. Yeah, so, I mean, that is the challenge we have whenever we think about changes to our streets, is a change to benefit one user has the potential to disbenefit other users. We're very clear on that in the transport strategy, and we clearly recognise that the transport strategy's approach to prioritising the needs of people walking and cycling in particular may mean that other street users have longer journeys as a result for it, and that is something that is assessed on a case-by-case basis, project by project, for those individual projects for it. Sometimes that involves quite complicated traffic modelling, particularly if it's a street that has impacts on Transport for London's network or the wider strategic road network within the city, which TfL also have an interest and kind of final say on any changes for it. Some of it is just more understanding what the alternative routes are and taking a view, and the committee taking a view as to whether they think those alternative routes are feasible for it. I should say as well, although we have, say, something like the Safer Streets programme, none of the projects we do only have a single element to them. They always look at how we can improve the whole street and how those projects impact across all users for those streets as well. So those things are always a consideration in the project, regardless of whether it sits in a particular programme or not, that might happen to have a particular focus or theme for it as well.
Liz, you had something related to this point as well. Sorry?
Yes, it does.
Yes, yeah, please. And then we're going to answer John's first question.
Yeah, sport Lego. Look at that, you're so strong, I love it. One thing that I was a little bit confused about is we talked in the risk register about the medieval streets being the problem. But then it also says that the TfL streets are where most of the injuries occur. So I'm not sure how that all links up. But it also then, I think, raises the issue that Deborah was talking about not just the coordination of the building of all these new buildings going on around Silk Street, et cetera, and in the Eastern Cluster, I'm sure. Do we actually look at now having dockless bike parking with all these, because that's, if you look at, say, outside the Heron, it's such a mess of bikes all over the place. Can we bring that in? Because surely with lots of development and then more e-bikes and such being discarded all over, with all the development going on, are we just going to lead to greater road injuries because pedestrians are going to be disadvantaged even further, having to walk in the streets or around by narrowing pavements with e-bikes? While, all these developments, they have to have internal parking for the workers, but people are going to still be visiting on the e-bikes, and we're just going to have more obstructions on the pavements. And if it is because they're the small medieval street plans, we're going to risk increasing injuries, which seems to be what we want to get rid of. But also, as I say, where do the medieval streets versus where the actual injuries occur? I'd like to understand. Thanks.
I think that's worth addressing primarily. I think on the e-bikes and dockless vehicles, I think we've got to be careful. The Vision Zero paper is a strategic paper at sort of 30,000 feet. We're going to be seeing contracting coming through for dockless bikes as a separate item at some point in the future. So I don't want to sort of mix the two up, if that's all right. Bruce?
Yeah, thank you for that. I guess medieval streets in that term is shorthand for the fact that we have relatively narrow streets in the City of London. Many of them are medieval and very narrow. For it, and then also, as the description goes on to describe, they're very, very busy, particularly with people walking, and we expect those numbers to go up as the city grows for it as well. I have to say, just as part of this reviewing the wording, I think we might look at how we review some of that wording, how that risk is described in that, because it's had that wording for quite a while now, and it's probably time to just review that and check it still makes sense for it as well. So that's where that comes in. We have, although generally for our Vision Zero targets and aspirations, obviously we're working in partnership with TfL on those, and we don't differentiate in terms of the broad numbers between our streets and TfL's, because one, I don't think people, general public out there necessarily differentiate between those two highway authorities, and two, it's important for us to work with TfL to address any issues or challenges on their streets, just as they will work with us to address them on ours as well for it. But it is true that there is a concentration of cycleways, and they're also, of course, like any street in a busy, any street in the city, very, very busy with people walking as well for it. So yeah, but we do work with TfL on how we can address those issues with them.
I'm just picking up on your point about the development incorporating Doctor's site. We are seeing an increasing appetite amongst certain major developers to incorporate Doctor's bike, which are used by their employees in their buildings. So hopefully we can encourage that. And I think the other thing I would probably want to remind this committee, because you're responsible for it, is the transformation of the public realm. You mentioned medieval streets, but virtually every major development comes in and creates a new route into the city, and this kind of reinventing the city alley. So we are adding on to those capillaries as part of the planning permissions granted by this committee.
Thank you. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back to John's original first point of the question, I have to say the questions about health and leisure and what they mean and what they define are sort of woven through a lot of that business plan in different areas. The best way for us to give you a considered response to that is if we take that one away, because it cuts across both the local plan and the transport strategy in terms of what we're delivering and the work streams behind it. So if you don't mind, we'll take that away and give you a considered response that gets to the nub of, I think, what you're after, John, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Ian. And I think you should put that little explanation every time you actually list those work streams, just so you have a definition right next to the work streams, what it means. So make them succinct and include them from now on. Otherwise, every time you look at that list, you're confused. Thank you.
We'll now have the Deputy Chair of Streets and Walkways.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, a lot of what I was going to ask has been covered, but just to say thank you very much for taking the time in to meet yesterday afternoon, just to really talk about embedding resident engagement in all of this work. And I really welcome the Aldersgate, Long Lane, Beach Street early New Year, and I'll be asking if we could put a preliminary date in to meet residents from the local area, and hopefully with the police joining us as well. To start that process. So thank you, and I won't ask the rest of my question because I think everybody's asked it, and we've had a commitment. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Jackie. Right, members, those items were all FI, so we'll take them all as read. Thank you for your questions. 8 is FI, 9 is FI, 10 questions on matters relating to the work of the committee. Alderman Gammon.
Thank you. I raised a question about the carbon offsetting fund, because this is something that I think the City of London have been collecting for some years now, but I felt there was perhaps a lack of transparency about where it was, how much it was, where it goes, who decides where it goes. Just speaking before the meeting, I was referred to the infrastructure funding statement that we had at our last meeting of the 21st of October, which refers to money from SIL and Section 106, but it doesn't make any reference to carbon offsetting funds. So it's still a bit unclear. Now, I did have a reply to my multi-part question from Rob Nichol, but I do feel that this committee perhaps deserves to have a bit of a better transparency on this. It's the fund that is quite a lot of money potentially. Again, like the other funds I mentioned, SIL and 106, it technically comes through this committee, but it's not always clear that this committee has any say in where it goes and where those different funds make an impact. So I think it would be very useful either to have a brief reply now, but to have some kind of summary of where the money from the carbon offsetting has gone, what is likely to come, because it only is paid at the end of the development, not at the beginning, as I understand it. And also whether or not there should be some particular theme or purpose to those funds being spent, rather than just lobbed into other ideas that the city wants to propose at any one time. So that's a slightly expanded version or a slightly varied version to the one that I gave you, Rob, but I hope it's still suitable to us now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Gammon. Is this microphone working? Yes. Great, thank you. And yeah, thank you for the question. First of all, just to say, we'll be very happy to produce a report early next year to this committee detailing the money that's come in on this and where it has been allocated so that that's entirely transparent for this committee and for anybody else who would care to have that information. Just as a verbal update to let you know where we are at. Currently, in terms of what's been collected to date, whilst that number does shift all the time, it's upwards of £1.5 million so far, and that number is due to increase over time as well. As the Alderman says that payments for this fund are made on completion of development, because that's the point at time at which we can calculate how much carbon has been emitted. So that's a bit unlike other planning obligations which come in earlier in the development cycle. We are expecting to receive more as time goes on, with major schemes completing, and for schemes that have been approved but not yet completed, we're expecting to see further income of upwards of £10 million, assuming those schemes get built out. So a relatively substantial sum of money. Just in terms of allocating this, that alongside Community Infrastructure Levy, of course, sits with the Resource Allocation Subcommittee in terms of the process for allocating those, and the City Surveyors Department have the responsibility for identifying energy efficiency and other carbon reduction projects that those funds can be allocated to. So far to date, around £3 million of funding has been allocated. Projects include lighting and ventilation upgrades to Tower Hill car park, some site optimisation work for buildings connected to CityGen, and a number of other capital delivery projects on the city's own properties. So we will, as I say, happily provide a snapshot update in the new year, and the Alderman mentioned the infrastructure funding statement. We'd be very happy to expand in future years within the infrastructure funding statement to set out what income has been received and to inform this committee of what projects that has been allocated to by the Resource Allocation Subcommittee. Thank you.
I mean, just on that, Rob, I mean, what we would want to see eventually is actually no contributions from this whatsoever, because everyone's behaving so in such a lovely manner. There's no carbon expulsion. So that's what we would like to see eventually once the city's been built out.
Yes, in an ideal world, that would certainly be optimal. Just a couple of points on that. Well, I think it's worthwhile just flagging that, of course, on the one hand, we are seeing retrofit projects come through as well. We will also see newer build schemes. Offices, commercial development typically does struggle compared to residential development and other developments in terms of meeting the carbon targets that dictate these offsetting payments. So I still expect to see that we will be getting some income here alongside other forms of payment. Finally, just to say we are looking to review the rates that we charge alongside our other work through the update to the planning obligations supplementary planning document, informed by a really rigorous and detailed viability assessment, which this committee will see in due course.
Yeah, let's not spook the market with that too much at the moment until you've got some figures. What I would like, though, is when you do the annual developer contribution report, I think we had it at the last Planning Grand Committee, can we include this into that? So it's just de rigueur that we get that report to committee. Is that all right?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a very sensible approach.
Thank you. Excellent. Seeing no other questions, well, didn't have any other questions flagged. Moving to agenda item 11. We've got the future dates of committee laid out as requested, members, so you can add these to your diary. And I noticed that the chairman has requested that the meetings are moved to committee rooms 3 and 4, as opposed to the grandeur of the livery hall that we've occupied for some time. So just take note that the meetings won't be here. They'll be in the West Wing, committee rooms 3 and 4 in the future. Thank you. Item 12, any other business? I don't have any? Do I?
Non-public question.
Yeah, I'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still in public.
Yeah.
There's no way you'll be for me, is there?
There's no both.
No. Right, we'll exclude the public. Members happy to exclude the public? Great.
Just give me a minute.
Sure.
To make sure.